13 HCT season, which isn't for a few months.
You saw Purple and Muzzy down there as well. All three of those players that he has longer winning streaks than had 10-0 playoff finishes.
Yeah. He went through the playoffs after round 3, then went through the summer championship, winning the whole thing. And now, will that continue here? Will Tom put a stop to it? It's tied up 1-1 currently. And we're moving into Warlock versus Rogue.
Surrender, you know, I've seen a lot of facial expressions from Surrender over the course of these last few tournaments. I don't recall him quite talking to himself during that point, though. I mean, these guys are playing not only for that world title, but there is a ton of money at stake. And that is the worst draw in Surrender's deck. That's gonna put a big hurt on his aggressive potential.
I mean, imagine what goes through players' heads when they're on this big of a stage in the semifinals tied up and they draw just about the worst card in their deck. You just have to sort of forget about that and make the best use of what you have. That's the risk you take by playing patches, is sometimes you're gonna draw it. And it seems like we've seen it happen a lot over the course of the World Championship.
You know, these are very crucial matches, and it's something that I look at when I think about that scenario is actually Frozen's lineup. He didn't bring Corridor Creeper. He can't draw patches if it's not in any of his decks. He's playing solid builds that target the metagame. Almost every other player in the tournament settled on one of the more standard-looking lineups. At this point, this is the absolute worst time it could happen, but it happens.
It happens. And as we take a look at how these hands look, Tom, Spirit Singer Umbra is another card that we haven't really got to touch on very much because it's not in a lot of the lists. And Spirit Singer Umbra in Carnivorous Cube can make for some pretty big swings in a game. And a lot of times Spirit Singer Umbra, if you just play it on turn 4, it's like a must-kill threat.
That's really, to me, the big benefit of that card, is it's a form of disruption. It offers you so much value if it's left up that your opponent often doesn't have the ability to just leave it unchecked. They have to put something into it. But if you're going to draw patches, I would guess that this is also a pretty decent one to pick up alongside with it. Prince Keliseth is pretty darn important to this matchup.
Yeah. But again, we talked about it earlier. Even just turn 3, if Keliseth's not played on curve, the win rate plummets.
Yeah. But
for all the decks that run it, and a large part of that is because of the synergy that it does have with patches.
Yeah, one of my questions to that, though, is Surrender fighting the early aggressive push in this matchup? His minions are going to fight directly against the Kobold Librarian. It's going to fight directly against Mistress of Mixtures, against Hellfires and Defiles. Is it the timing of that pressure that's more important for Surrender, or is it the early outright aggression? The early outright aggression certainly matters, but I think it's the timing of pressure that matters more.
Yeah, I mean, they're both paths to win the game at the end of the day. And you're happy to see it drawn on turn 3 than drawn on turn 15.
Right.
But still, now the big thing here for Surrender is pacing out these threats. Yeah, playing Prince Keliseth on 2 is great, but what are you doing after that? It just gets challenged. He needs to put something on the board. Surrender realizes this and goes with a pretty small Edwin, but an Edwin that's not being challenged at that. And
this does hurt Tom's ability to just coin out that Spirit Singer Umbra if that was ever on his mind, though.
Yeah.
So he's looking like Surrender is actually going to get quite rewarded for this play. And I like this, too. Again, the early aggression matters, but it depends on what form of it. Stacking up minions that are large works better against these Control Warlock decks because they have so many tools to pick apart small boards.
And now Tom trying to think through this one. He could tap play Mistress of Mixtures that still lines him up for a Mountain Giant play on next turn.
Play the Kobold, maybe try to look for another option.
Look for additional removal, but Kobold is also a great tool in coupling with the Defile. Well, I mean, right now it just sort of gets eaten up.
Well, this is, I think, a brilliant play from Tom. And the reason why isn't because I think the Mistress gets eaten up. It's because knowing that Surrender has that 4/4 on board means it's very difficult for him to play a 3 health minion right now. Tom could play the Kobold and the Mistress of Mixtures and then rip the Defile with it. He's saving both of those tools to start that chain of Defiles.
That's a great spot, great point.
This is exactly what Tom did in game number 1 with the Arcane Tyrant as well. He hid it behind the taunts rather than playing it for free immediately. And that timing and that pressure, I think, gave him a big lead in that game.
That is going to set it up. Surrender now, though, likely to play Seems like patches plus neutral next turn, so this is the time we want to get Kelseth rolling when you're about to start generating those resources.
His attack on the previous turn with the dagger actually alluded to this play as well. Oftentimes you'll see Surrender save his dagger in that spot just to try to get more value, and Tom holding on to that Mistress of Mixtures, that is exactly the direction he's headed with that Kobold, that Mistress, and that Defile in hand. And it's very difficult for Surrender to anticipate a 3-card combination when Tom has had 2 opportunities to play one of those.
He's basically using it as 3 cards, draw a card, gain 2, and clear your opponent's board. That's the combination that he's got his eye on. But the thing is, Tom doesn't have a way to stifle pressure beyond that. Currently, he's picked up more Mountain Giants, which will naturally get there. But no cheating demons out with Skull Dominaria or Possessed Lackey, and that's where the big strength of this deck lies.
Yeah, something really big to look at here is that Mountain Giant's often a card Surrender's not at all worried about. But because he didn't have that early pressure, it gave Tom time to simply build his hand size and make those a lot cheaper. And Cairn in Surrender's list is a card that can be quite difficult for Tom to fend off in terms of pressure. It just gives him something that will stick to the board.
Yeah, it's a card that fell out of favor because, largely because of Corridor Creeper. A 6-mana 4/5 was directly challenged by sometimes a 0-mana 5/5, which sort of pushed it out. But Surrender opted to go for it, and it is better in this type of matchup because the Warlock doesn't have great removal to deal with Cairn. And of course, Tom doesn't have a Spellbreaker in his deck, so he doesn't have a way to sort of immediately get rid of it.
Well, Tom's hand is starting to shape up pretty nicely, but he is under a lot of pressure. So now the thing he's got to worry about is Leroy Jenkins from Surrender. He knows what cards are in the deck, so he doesn't have to worry about Cold Blood shenanigans. But at 16 life, if he just starts trading this Mountain Giant onto the board, that pressure is going to continue to mount on Surrender's side. At some point, Tom is going to have to swing the board.
Yeah. Leroy Jenkins currently 7 attack because of the Prince Galseth. And again, we talk about Tom's list and sort of the risks that he took with building his lineup. And of course, with the Doomguard package and Mountain Giants, you leave less room for removal.
That's right.
No Twisting Nether in Tom's list. He's got the 2 copies of Defile, the 2 copies of Hellfire, and the Amethyst Spellstones. That's about it. That's his removal package. He relies on the combos that piece his deck together to get through these parts of the game.
This is the other benefit to hanging on at Mistress of Mixtures. You get the time. Mistress represents 8 points of life gain rather than just 4, and some of it's immediate. Well, that's an interesting draw. He can combo that this turn alongside 2 Corridor Creepers as well.
That seems like a pretty powerful play to me.
So there's the first trade. There's the second. Tom's getting more life total, but now this is that timing of pressure that Surrender was looking for.
And because of the buffs on the minions, Tom's clear is going to be tougher.
This is looking really tough for Tom at this stage.
He still can do it. Hellfire, Kobold Librarian, Coin, Defile.
Oh, because that sets the first Corridor Creeper to 2.
That's right.
Wow.
So it is a clear, but it's a lot of resources.
Look at how important that Keleseth buff 1 turn earlier could have been for Surrender. Now, say that Corridor Creeper was drawn at some point with a Keleseth buff. That board doesn't happen, I don't believe. Oh, it does with the Vile Spine. Never mind. I'm an idiot. It's looking like Cairn time. Notice, though, that Tom is approaching that 9-mana spot where Void Lord hits. If Surrender sees a Void Lord hit at this stage, he is going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, a lot of times as Rogue, you're looking to kill the Warlock on turn 8 and dodge all these demons, but Cairn out of 5/6 is quite a big deal. But as soon as that first Void Lord drops, especially with only 1 Vile Spine Slayer left for Surrender, you pretty much need to get through it immediately, because as soon as you don't, you open up your opponent to be able to cube it, you open up your opponent to be able to trade, and make use of these combos that they have in their deck.
And they're going to attack. Possessed Lackey gets drawn for Tom.
Still the 2 Doom Guards left in his deck, though. He's got 1 Void Lord, 2 Doom Guards. So if he goes for Possessed Lackey plus Dark Pact, it's actually more likely that he draws a Doom Guard instead. And outside of that, he doesn't have a way to guarantee that Doom Guard lives the following turn to be able to cube it.
I wonder.
Is there a chance that he just plays Possessed Lackey?
Is there a chance that he just plays Mountain Giant?
The Possessed Lackey could, if it stays on the board for a turn, he doesn't die. Then he's got the cube for that chance at it. It would be the Dark Pact immediately, I have to think. This is a tough spot for Tom. All of his plays are risks at this point. No matter what he does, he will be vulnerable to something without a favorable outcome.
Yeah, and the life path. And just plays the Possessed Lackey onto the board.
That's a 7-point Leroy right now. So 7 plus the 5 on board, plus 2 from that. Is Surrender 1 damage off lethal?
1 damage off lethal. If he had a dagger equipped, he would end the game right now. And now the big question is, do you deal that damage? With the dagger hit in Leroy, he puts Tom at 2 with SI7H in hand. This Possessed Lackey on board, Surrender does not have insight into what's in Tom's hand.
I can't believe, I can't imagine here that Surrender thinks that Tom has a Dark Pact in hand already. Tom chose to life tap and play Possessed Lackey, taking a risk on his life total where he could just outright die before that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Tom have Dark Pacted this Possessed Lackey immediately, I think is what Surrender's thinking right now.
Because he puts him at 2, he's got the combo activator. Tom would need healing. Even Possessed Lackey wouldn't be able to fight back on the board long enough. No, he's just going to build up a bigger board.
And I think this is quite wise as well, actually. With this particular play, Surrender now has an opportunity to even bust through Void Lord with the Vile Spine Slayer. So he would push through Void Lord and then pressure Tom on the swing after that. So this one's important.
Void Lord gets the Void Lord.
And here's the thing, that Leroy in hand now is not getting through for a long time because Tom has an insane amount of combination of the cards here. The Prince Tal'Daram to copy the Void Lord, get an extra death rattle there. The Carnivorous Cube, get the Void Walkers right away, and then use the Dark Pact to heal up and make 2 more Void Lords. I think Tom might have stabilized this turn.
He can't do it all this turn, though, and the question is, which one does he go with? He could Carnivorous Cube the Void Lord and Dark Pact the Carnivorous Cube to make double Void Lords, but he doesn't get immediate value out of the first Void Lord. But this is going to be the way that he stifles the most pressure.
Where does Surrender just break through in this spot? This is just a lot of attacking he's going to have to do. And, mind you, there is a Void Lord underneath that Carnivorous Cube.
He can actually even eat the Carnivorous Cube.
With a Carnivorous Cube.
With a Carnivorous Cube.
Now, I don't think he's going to do that, but I don't know where Surrender breaks through again. This is going to be a giant wall of defense that Tom sets turn after turn.
I don't know, Admirable. 4 Void Lords seems pretty good to me.
It's about as good as it gets. It's hard to beat 1 Void Lord.
That's why a lot of players opted to not bring the Doomguard package in the Greedier Warlock deck to this tournament, is because against most decks, the Void Lords just get there. You don't need the Doomguards to end the game. And this combat gets really complex.
Yeah, your question might be, why isn't Surrender trading off one of these minions? But I imagine that Defile is somewhere on his mind. How does that math change when he has a natural 2 health minion? Tom's not thinking about that. Tom's thinking about how he's about to get 2 more Void Lords.
Yep. Yep.
Up to 15.
And a giant board for Tom.
How on earth does Surrender break through?
He's still got a lot of power on board.
Swashbuckler Defile, maybe? I'm sorry, Swashbuckler Twisting Nether. Something insane is going to have to happen for Surrender to win this game, and he's not even going to play that one out. 2-1 lead for Tom. He is on match point.